If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and another tutorial. Today I am super excited to sew along with you the Kindslay bag, a sewing ArtZ pattern. This is the medium size. There is also a small size. I first want to thank Edmana for allowing me to make this tutorial and including me in the launch of this fantastic pattern, as all of her patterns are. Okay, let me show you the amazing features of this bag. So first I'm going to show you the handle. The handle is pretty cool. So right now I have this kind of, it's convertible. This is the handbag handle. Okay, so what's cool about this is you could have it just as a handbag, or you can take your crossbody strap, take off the handbag handle and just clip it into the D-rings. Or you'll see here, we have D-rings that are on our handbag handle. You can clip these into that. So when you're out and about, you may only want to be carrying it in your hand. That's okay, that works. But now you want it to be a shoulder bag. So you have this already hung onto it. You kind of put the handle out of the way and you have it as a crossbody or a shoulder bag. Isn't that fun? So much fun. For the other features of this bag. So has a zipper in the front flap here. There is plenty of room here. In the pattern, the nameplate is actually on the back of the bag, and she has some photos of some amazing reverse applique or what have you here, or you can feature some sort of print right here. There's so many different things you can do with this. We have a zipper pocket with overlay on the flap, and underneath the flap, we have a very roomy bag. This has such a wide bottom, and I'm going to show you that part last because that's actually my favorite part of this bag. So we got a zipper pocket with overlay on one side, and we have a slip pocket on the other. Now, my favorite part of this bag is, check out this side. Yes, that is the strap connector that is kind of woven in and out all the way around. Isn't that gorgeous? And it's so not hard to do, super easy. I truly enjoyed making this pattern. It is so original and different that I just absolutely love it. Okay, this is a birthed bag. So it's an opening in the bottom, and you have an opening in your zipper pocket. You turn it through the bottom, and then you close up the bottom through the zipper pocket on the lining side. This could easily, even though it's not written in the pattern as this, but if you're like me and you have carpal tunnel, this is very, very easy to convert into a drop-in lining as well. So you can save that turning. I think I would do that. I'm going to try that the next one I make, but both ways would be great. That's just a way to make it easier for those who have a hard time birthing a bag like me, but I do birth it in this video. Vinyls in this bag. These are the variegated vinyls from Galaxy Customs. They're like Lynx and Beaver or something like that. Lynx and Beaver, maybe. I do not remember the names of these two colors. There is piping. I've got two colors of piping here. I made my own piping. She has all the measurements for making your own piping in there as well. So that is great. What else? I do have a Decovil Heavy in the flap. If I used cotton pieces, I would have backed all of my cotton pieces with a woven interfacing such as Fuse Lite from Emmeline Bags or SF101. As I used a waterproof canvas, I did not have to do that. This gorgeous waterproof canvas is from Sew Yours. It was my first time sewing with it, and oh my gosh, it is the most luxurious waterproof canvas I've ever sewn with. I just loved it. My main stabilizer in this is foam, and I use the Pretty in Pink Sew Foam from Galaxy Customs. All my raw edges I edge painted with Giardini Edgepaint. Three coats of base, one coat of color, and one coat of the protecting gloss. Again, completely optional if you want to do any kind of edge painting. All my hardware is from Emmeline Bags. What else? I'm not sure where these zippers and zipper pulls came from. I have people sending me stuff all the time, so I'm not sure where those are from, but I do know that Sew Yours sells something similar. They may have even come from Sew Yours. I don't remember. What else? I really think that's it. Again, thank you so much, Amanda, for including me in this launch. I strongly urge you to go and buy this one. It is absolutely amazing to sew up, and it doesn't take that much time, and it is so different from anything out there today. Yeah, how about we get to making this bag?
Need some rivets, number 5 zipper tape, 2 swivel clasps, a slider, 2 strap-ins, 2 D-rings, 2 magnetic snaps, your nameplate, 2 zipper pulls, and some piping cording. If you're doing the removable handle option, we need 2 more rectangle rings, 2 more swivel clasps, 2 more D-rings, and 2 more strap-ins. Okay, so these are my 4 connector pieces here for the handle and my handle piece, my crossbody pieces, my piping vinyl pieces, my front panel, exterior and lining, my back panel, exterior and lining, my side panel, exterior and lining, my flap pieces, exterior lining, and my piece of Decovil Heavy, my slip pocket pieces, my zipper pocket pieces, my flap serger piece, my strap suspension piece, and my piece for the loops along the side, and some sew-in foam. I'm going to go ahead and make my crossbody strap on my handle off camera. If you need a class on how to do that, it's down below in the description. So we're going to work on our handle piece. We're going to take our 2 connector pieces here. I'm going to put some double-sided tape down the center line I've already drawn. You can definitely use clips here if you prefer. Fold those long ends into that center line, and then you're going to top stitch down each of those sides with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now we're going to slide on a D-ring and a rectangle ring, bring these connectors wrong sides together, and base the bottom to hold everything in place. Once that's done, we're going to take our strap ends here, and we're going to slide a swivel clasp halfway down on each of these. I'm going to use small bits of double-sided tape and put them on the short ends of each of these connectors. And then what we're going to do is we are going to fold these in half, nice and centered, over top of the raw end of our D-ring rectangle ring pieces, and that is going to enclose that raw edge. Now you want to make sure that these are going nice and even both ways around, so when we stitch these in place, you're catching both sides. You'll also want to make sure your bobbin thread looks nice as well. So sandwich it like so, make sure they're nice and even, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to top stitch these in place as close as we can to the hardware. A zipper foot will definitely help with that, and follow the line of the connector, and you can also go ahead and stitch an X in between that if you wanted to. I'm going to put a rivet there instead of doing the X. So that's what that looks like here. Now place these so the D-ring is facing up. Take your handle piece also right side up, slide it into the swivel clasp, bringing it wrong sides together by about 1.25 inches. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rivet those in place. I'm also going to put rivets in my side connectors here. As you can see, that is all done, and that is the removable handle piece complete. Now we're going to take our side pieces here, and you can see on the pattern piece we have some markings to make. Transfer those marks to the wrong side of our exterior piece and go ahead and cut those slits. Now we're going to take our suspension band, I believe she calls it. I call it a connector. I've drawn a center line. I'm using a double-sided tape here. You can definitely use clips again. You're going to fold that long edge into that center line. Top stitch down each side of that, which I have done. Repeat the exact same thing with our loops piece. Now we're going to take our loop piece, and I've divided it into 6 separate pieces. The measurement is in the pattern. Go ahead and cut these into 6 equal segments. Next, we're going to take each of those and we are going to slide them into those loops, making sure they are nice and centered. You could kind of eyeball it from the wrong side. Go ahead and do that with all 6. Now that they're in there, they're going to check they're pretty much centered. Now I'm going to take my pattern piece here and fold in the dotted lines on each side. And I'm going to take some chalk or an erasable marking pen and draw that across here on both sides. Okay, now that we have those marked, what we want to do is go from those lines and we want to measure about 1/8 of an inch away from the slits and mark it with a ruler. This is going to give us a nice guideline where we go to top stitch these loops in place on each side. So this way you are top stitching along where those little slits are, and that is also going to hold those loops in place. So draw a line down both sides. And then we're going to take this to the machine and we are going to top stitch from the top of the first loop down to the bottom of the last loop, straight down here on both sides. Okay, so that is what that looks like all complete. Now what we want to do is take our front and back exterior panels and that side gusset and back them with some foam like I've done here. Okay, so now what you want to do is where we have those lines drawn, we're going to go 1/8 of an inch away from there and 1/8 of an inch away from that other line that we just top stitched, but you're going to go all the way to the top of where we marked those lines across. You can go ahead and wipe away those markings. Now we're going to take our strap suspension, find the centers of both the strap suspension and the side gusset piece like so. I'm going to draw a line with some chalk. It's just going to help me guide this on nice and easy. Same with on the right side of the strap suspension. And then we're going to weave the strap suspension in through those loops and we're going to line up those center lines. Okay, next what we're going to do is measure up from that first loop as per the pattern and make a mark with some chalk. Again, from the other side of the loop, same thing with the measurement in the pattern. Take your D-ring, slide it onto that end, and you're going to fold the raw end wrong sides together, and it's going to pass through that loop by a little bit, and you want it to line up, the hardware to line up right where that line we just drawn is. So make sure that it is also in behind that loop because now we're going to go ahead and top stitch this in place. So almost right up against our loop here, but on the strap connector, we're going to top stitch right along here where I'm marking by about 1/8 of an inch. And then we're also going to go ahead and measure down as per the pattern, another line from the hardware. And then we're going to stitch those 2 lines to secure the strap suspension in place. That's done, I went ahead and I put 2 rivets on each of the ends backed with some Decovil Heavy scraps. Okay, so now we're going to work on our flap. I've already gone ahead and done my zipper pocket with overlay, closing up the entire lining piece and put in my nameplate. If you need a class on how to do that, just down below in the description. Okay, so now I'm going to also go ahead and I'm going to make my vinyl piping. If you don't know how to do that, I do have that down in the description. Okay, so on the sides of our flap here, you're going to see these piping placement lines. So I'm going to mark those with an erasable pen on my main flap pattern piece here. I have a center mark on both my top and bottom of the flap and along the raw edge of my piping piece. I'm going to hold that in place with a couple clips. Now to get around this curve, because I am using a vinyl piping, I am putting some little snips into the curve to help ease that fabric around the corner. And then I'm going to start clipping that in place, easing it around. Okay, so now when you get up to that mark that we had made on the side, I'm also going to transfer that mark onto my piping piece here. And then I'm going to measure down about 1¼ inches down from that piping piece, or that line I wrote on the piping piece there. I'm going to trim this up just a little bit above that line, and then I'm going to pull out my basting stitches from my piping here because we need to cut the cording inside the vinyl down to about that 1¼ inch line. That way, when we veer this off, we are not sewing through that foam welt piping. Now, if you're using cotton piping, you're probably okay to sew through that, but I am using a foam welt piping, so that is not fun to sew through at all. Once you done that, you get to where that line is, you're going to veer the piping off this way. Make sure that you don't have any cording in there where the veer off is, so you will not be sewing through it, and do the same on the opposite side. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to sew that in place. I have changed into my piping foot. It does perfect stitching right up against that inner piping cord. A zipper foot here would also do the same trick. This is what that looks like all done. Make sure it's all good, and you can go ahead and you can trim these little wings off of the piping to follow the lines of the flap piece. Now we're going to take our flap lining piece, find your top and bottom centers, and we are going to install the male side of the magnetic snap. So that's the side that has the little nubbins on it. So you're going to use your pattern piece. I'm just going to put little holes where my placement is, put it on the right side of my lining piece, and with an erasable pen, I'm going to go ahead and mark where that placement is and install my 2 male side of my magnetic snaps in those places, backed with small scraps of Decovil Heavy to help give a little extra added security. So that's what that looks like done. I also like to back it with little pieces of Gorilla Tape. Now we're going to take these 2 pieces and we are going to put them right sides together, match up those bottom centers. And then you're going to clip together all the sides. Now we are going to be sewing these sides together and leaving the very top of the flap open for turning. Now we're going to go ahead and sew all the way around here with the seam allowance in the pattern, Again, I still have my piping foot on because I can go over my piping nice and even here. I do strongly urge you to still have your zipper foot on, and you can kind of follow the lines of where you sewn the piping on, so you know that you are not sewing over the piping or getting it caught in that seam by accident. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and take my pinking shears, and I'm just going to trim just from where the piping starts and stops around to about somewhere in between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch, just to reduce some of that bulk, especially where the piping is, because that is a little bit of a thicker seam, especially if you used vinyl piping like I have. Once you have that all snipped, go ahead and turn this right side out through the opening in the top. Go ahead and push out all of those seams nice and tight. She looks good so far. And then what we're going to do is we are going to take our Decovil Heavy piece and we are going to slide this in. Now, you are going to want to slide it in such a way, I find that if you roll it up like this, it helps a little. And what we want to do is we want to slide it in underneath the seam so it sits nice and flat against the lining side. So make sure it's under the seam on the lining side. Once you have that all placed good, go ahead and use some clips just to hold it in place. And what we're going to do is we are going to go and top stitch all the way around. When you get to the piping, you'll be kind of doing it on the flap, not on the piping side, all the way around, and that is going to secure that Decovil Heavy plate piece in place. You can also, after top stitching it, take it to the iron, and on the lining side, if you're using a material that does not melt, you can definitely give it a little bit of a fuse as well to help stick it in place. I am also going to go ahead and baste the top of this shut right here. I've changed into my left zipper foot. That way I can get top stitching nice and close to my piping. That's how it looks good. It looks good on both sides. Our pocket works well. Set that aside for now. Okay, so now we're still going to use it. You're going to get your flap serger piece here, just like we did with the connectors. You have a center line, bring the long edges into that center line, but we are not going to top stitch this just yet. Once you have these folded down, take some double-sided tape down the center of the wrong side of this. Now on our exterior back panel, I've already done my markings as per the pattern pieces. On the lining side of the raw edge of our flap, I'm going to use some double-sided tape along here. And I am going to center this right up against that line. Now you want to definitely make sure it's centered. Make sure once you've got it in place, you measure it to make sure it is definitely centered, which it is. Once you're happy with where it is, go ahead and just baste along that raw edge. Okay, so now I am going to measure down a 1/2 inch from that raw edge like so. Nice and straight, and this is going to help us with the placement of that flap serger band. We want to have the raw edge of the flap kind of in the center of our flap serger band so we can catch it with our top stitching. Take the tape off the flap serger band, put it along that line, stick in place. Again, make sure it is nice and straight and that you've caught the flap about halfway down. We're going to top stitch down each side. Once that is done, you can go ahead and trim the flap serger band up to follow the shape of your exterior panel, just like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a rivet here, making sure you're catching the flap within the rivets. And I'm also going to do one in the middle right here. So that's done. I've backed them all with scraps of Decovil Heavy. Now we're going to work on our front panel. And once again, we are going to put the markings of where the female side of our flap or magnetic snaps are going to go. I'm also going to mark my centers here and go ahead and install the female sides of your magnetic snaps backed with some Decovil Heavy scraps. I'm also just going to double check that my markings line up with the same width as my flap magnetic snaps, and they do. They are perfect. Once that's done, go ahead and just kind of snap it in place just to make sure they fit, and it kind of gives you an idea what your bag is going to look like. Okay, so now we are going to go ahead on our front and back main panels and do our piping just like we did with the flap. So we have all of our piping done on all 3 of these panels. It looks great. Now we're going to put the exterior together. So I'm going to take my front main panel and my gusset piece here. I'm going to match up the bottom center. Then I'm going to bring the top short end up to match the top of the main body piece here. Put a couple clips. Same with the opposite side. Then you're going to evenly distribute that fabric around that curve. Now I didn't have to do any snips in this. This pattern piece was absolutely perfect for shape, but if you're finding it is having a hard time getting around that curve, you can definitely put a few little 1/8 of an inch snips into those corners to help branch that fabric around. Be scared of using lots of clips. As you can see, I am. You're going to go ahead and you're going to sew all the way around there with the seam allowance stated in the pattern. Now I've gone ahead and I put my piping foot on again just because I'm going to be sewing over that piping, and we want to make sure we are not catching the piping in the seam or breaking a needle on the piping cording. Then you can kind of pop it through and make sure that your piping looks good. Mine looks good. If you need to go in to get a little closer, you can definitely do that, but mine turned out perfect thanks to that piping foot. Once you're happy with that, go ahead and do the exact same thing with the back side onto the unsewn side of the gusset. So that is our exterior done. What we can do now to check that piping is turn it right side out. Make sure your piping looks good all the way around, and it does. And I'm also going to just double check that my snaps line up again, and they do. That is the exterior complete. All right, so now we're going to do our lining panels. I've already done my slip pocket lining, leaving my pockets, leaving my zipper pocket open for closing up later. If you need classes on how to do the lining pockets, I do have that down below in the description. Now we're going to go ahead and we are going to put this together in a similar fashion of the exterior, except for on the side we have the slip pocket on. We're going to leave a little opening about yay big for turning. Now we're going to start at the top just before it curves with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and then branch out to a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance along the bottom part, and then back up to a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance to the top. And what that's going to do is make it so our lining is slightly smaller, so it fits snug within our exterior, but keeps the circumference around the top the same as the exterior. Go ahead, turn your lining right side out. I've already turned my exterior wrong side out. This is just much easier to do this way, trust me. You're going to put your lining and exteriors at right sides together like so. Make sure you have your pockets situated the way you want them to go. I like my slip pocket at the front. I'm stuffing my flap in between the right sides of the lining and the exterior just so it stays out of the seam allowance. On my main panels of my lining and exterior, I'm matching up the center marks and securing with a few clips. And same with the other main panels. And then on the side gussets, you're going to match up the side seams. Now I am just going to nest these together with my exterior going towards the gusset and my linings going towards the main panels. You can open them up as well, but with it being such a small seam allowance, it's a little bit difficult to do that. So I found nesting worked just fine. Do the same with the opposite side. And then once you have those 1/4 sections all in place, go ahead and distribute the fabric evenly in between those 1/4 sections and secure with clips. Once we have all of our clips in, now if I was on my flatbed machine, I would lay this down like I'm just about to show you here. And I would stitch it from the inside of the bag like so. Now, if you're on a cylinder arm or a free arm like I am, you can go ahead and stitch it from the exterior, just like I'm showing you here on my cylinder arm. Go ahead and make sure it was caught evenly all the way around. When you're happy with that, pull your lining up and turn your bag through the opening in the bottom of the lining. Now, this took me a little bit just because I used a rather thick waterproof canvas and, of course, a thicker vinyl. So it does take me a little bit of time. I find if you bring your flap through the opening first, it turns a lot easier. This would also be brilliant to do as a drop-in lining if you have carpal tunnel like me and you struggle with turning a bag. A drop-in lining for this would be an amazing modification to make it super easy and to avoid the turning if you needed another option to do this. So if I was on my flatbed, I would keep this bag inside out. So I'd have my exterior on the inside and my lining on the inside to top stitch, but I'm going to keep turning this through the rest of the way, so my lining is where it's going to go and my exterior is where it's going to go. But definitely if you're on a flatbed, because this is a smaller mouth for a bag, you may want to top stitch this inside out. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to secure all of these seams with clips, making sure I am rolling them nice and tight and even all the way around. And once again, if it was on my flatbed, I would do it from the inside, but I'm going to go ahead and do it from the outside because I do have a cylinder arm. So that is that complete. That looks really, really good. Now we need to close up the bottom opening. So I'm going to pull my zipper pocket with the opening in the bottom. I'm going to reach in and I'm going to grab the bottom where we left that opening in the bottom of the bag. Again, I used a thicker waterproof canvas, so it's liking to stick to itself a little bit here. Once you get the bottom up, you're going to go ahead and clip that opening in place. Make sure it's not twisted. Match up the bottom center so you know it is where it needs to be. Secure with clips. That's in place. You're going to go ahead, take that to the machine and top stitch through that with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once that is done, go ahead, stuff it back in, make sure everything was caught and there's no holes. It looks great. Now you're going to take your zipper pocket, make sure your raw edges are folded in, clip in place. And then go ahead and top stitch that closed. Stuff your zipper pocket lining back in. Pop all of your linings and everything out nice and tight. Make sure everything is tucked in nicely. And just like that, the bag is all assembled. So now what we're going to do, you can see that's got a great opening in there. It's a nice and roomy, smaller size bag. Now I'm going to take my handle piece here. I'm going to clip it into my D-rings. Then I'm going to take my crossbody piece and clip it. Well, that's how it is as a handbag. Take your crossbody piece so you can click it into the D-rings on the handle. And then it is a what am I trying to say here? A multi-use kind of bag. Handle, crossbody, shoulder bag. Admire your work. Pat yourself on the back. And we're done.
All right, that's it. That's all. What'd you think about that? I forgot to mention that the only thing I did differently, and it was because I was short on vinyl, was I did a 2-sided crossbody strap that just made it so I had enough width to do my 1-inch strap. Yeah, but that was the only thing I really did different. Anyways, if at any time you did like this video, please do give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. If you'd like to support my channel further, you can always buy me a coffee. That's linked down below in the description. And yeah. Oh, also check out the membership side of the channel. I have many sewing arts classes over there. Check it out. Maybe there's something there that sparked your interest as well. Anyways, until the next one, I'll catch you guys again. Bye.